Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a well-known and respected speaking strategist from Melbourne, Australia, Carmen Sederino. Carmen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ash. I'm very excited to be here and chatting to you today.
Thank you. Carmen is a performance master and a speaking strategist. Her proprietary methodology, the Illuminated Story Method, goes beyond conventional speech coaching, and the outcomes are way beyond a standard keynote. So, Carmen, before we talk about speaking and the Illuminated Story Method, a few questions for you. Tell me about your journey and how did your background in theater uniquely position you for the work you're doing today?
Well, you might be surprised to learn, Ash, that I was actually a very shy child.
Okay.
My mum enrolled me in something called calisthenics, which is
Mhm.
sort of like dancing. I'm not sure if you have it in India.
Mhm.
And I was very happy to go each week and learn the choreography and really enjoyed it. And then there was
Mhm.
an end of year concert that was coming up.
Mhm.
And my mum thought there is no way that Carmen is going to get up on that stage. And if she does, I'm
Mhm.
probably going to have to catch her side stage when she runs
Okay.
off crying.
Mm.
But the opposite happened. It turned out that the stage was my home. I got up on stage and I was smiling and waving and having an absolute ball.
Wow.
So I ended up joining a local theatre company by the age of 8,
Mm.
and the theatre company would put on a couple of productions per year.
Mhm.
And some of those productions we would travel to local primary schools. So we traveled this particular production to my own school.
Mm.
And my teachers said to my parents, "Oh my goodness, I cannot believe that is Carmen. She's the quiet child up the back of the classroom just doing her work. But on stage, she's like another person. She's got this big
Wow.
voice and all this energy that,
Mm.
projects up to the back of the theatre."
Mm.
So I went on to study formally. I did a Bachelor of Performing Arts at Monash University in Melbourne,
Mhm.
and I stayed on and did my honours year. And for my honours thesis, I wrote a show. So I wrote a theatre show and produced, directed, acted in it, put it on, which was all part of the thesis. And then I had to write a report on all the choices that I'd made.
Mm.
So the characters I'd chosen to write about and bring to life, the set design, the lighting design, the sound, the music,
Mm.
why I had multimedia elements in the show.
Mm.
Um, and I did very well. I got a high distinction for that particular assignment. But it really honed the whole craft
Mm.
of theatre, not just the performance
Yeah.
side.
Mm.
During my university years, I did also study acting for film and television, so that I had both skills. They're slightly different skill sets.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I needed to have a job. So I started working part-time for quite a large corporate homemaker organization in Australia.
Mhm.
And that was just part-time, Monday, Friday, Saturday, selling on the shop floor while I was studying.
Mhm.
When I finished my degree, my manager at that organization said, "Can you come and work for us full time?" And I
Mhm.
said, "Oh, no, I can't. I've got to keep my days free for auditions." And she said, "Well, what about if I do a deal? You
Mm.
can work for us full time, and if your agent gets you an audition, I'll let you go. And if you get some jobs, you can go." I'm like, "Okay,
Mm.
that sounds like a great deal." So
Absolutely.
I said yes. And a few years later, I was promoted to a state role within their business where I would visit all of the shops in the state of Victoria within
Mhm.
Australia. And I'd have to coach on customer service skills and selling skills, and I would check the merchandising and basically was like an overseeing manager for that section of the business.
Mm.
A couple of years later, I became the manager of that national team. So
Mm.
then I had a team of people doing that. And what was interesting was we would always promote from within.
Mhm.
And the role that I was promoting people into meant that they had to deliver about 2 weeks worth of classroom training 5 times a year back then, because there was no e-learning.
Mm.
And they had to speak at state meetings and often in front of people more senior than themselves.
Right.
So what I found was it was everyone's biggest fear coming into the job role,
Mm,
and within 12 months, it was their favorite thing to do.
mm,
And what I also observed was that the business saw them differently
mhm,
at the end of that journey. And they were often promoted into senior leadership roles
mm,
because of their ability to be able to speak out to groups of people
mhm,
and inspire others towards a certain direction, mission, vision. I studied marketing in that time that I was in that national and international. In the end, we went into New Zealand
mm,
role and was the brand manager for that portfolio. So it was about a
mm,
$300 million portfolio of brands by
uh-huh,
the end of my time there. And so I got to see lots of people pitching to us to
mhm,
distribute their products nationally and
yeah,
internationally.
yeah.
And we would also pitch for big exclusive overseas brands that were in the luxury end of the market.
Mm,
Uh, and so I saw good, bad, and everything in between when it came to pitching and
correct.
presenting.
Yes, yes.
And 7 years ago, I decided to leave. So I ended up being in that large business for over 18 years and leading national teams. And then
Mm,
I decided to leave and start my own business. And
mm,
that business is Illuminated Story.
wonderful.
Um,
How
the
wonderful.
vision for Illuminated Story from the beginning and still now has always been to light people up from the inside, to help
Mm,
them share their message with the world.
how amazing. How amazing. And as they say, the rest is history, right?
That's right. The rest is history.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about Illuminated Story Method. Tell me, given your own amazing background of, as a 7-year-old suddenly finding your voice, so to speak, in on the stage, what is the core philosophy behind the Illuminated Story Method?
From a high level perspective, the illuminated story method is all about it's basically helping thought leaders. So, it could be a CEO, could be an author or an elite athlete that's transitioning out of their
Mm,
career, could be a podcaster like yourself that, spreads your voice out to so many around the world.
mm,
Helping them take their high stakes presentation
mm,
and turn it into an unforgettable performance.
mm,
And I do that by blending traditional keynote speaking with strategically placed elements of theatrical magic, is how I like to explain it.
mm, mm. How amazing. But, moving uh, forward with performance and presentation, you emphasize creating performances rather than presentations that you just told me.
Mm.
What kind of
Mm.
a mind shift or mindset shift is needed to do this?
Yeah, great question. So you're right. I call them keynote shows, not
Mm,
keynote presentations.
yeah.
And it is because we're bringing out performance elements within that keynote show.
Mm,
So
mm,
the mindset shift for clients that I work with is to not just want to get their message across to the audience. So not just inform or educate the audience, but to provide an experience for the
mm,
audience so
mm,
that it's so immersive for the audience that they can't help but remember the
mm,
key messages that
mm,
you're wanting to get across.
mm. Amazing. And how important is the integration of theatrical elements like storytelling, lighting, sound, and movement in your methodology?
Yeah, really important. Really, really important. Think about sometimes you'll be watching a Netflix series or a movie, and if you just watch for a moment, just a few scenes,
Mhm,
and think about if everything was stripped back. So if it was just the actors delivering their lines without the setting they're in, without the lighting, whether it's darkness or lightness or whatever it is that's happening,
mm,
without the sound effects, without the music,
mm,
it strips away a lot of the emotion that's generated in your
mm,
body as you're
mm.
watching it.
Yeah.
And that's what we can create for people in
Mm,
live
mm,
keynote shows, that really emotive feeling.
Fascinating. And based on all the people or leaders you have worked with, what are some of the mistakes you have seen leaders make when they try to craft their own stories?
uh, Good question. Two key things that I see are because you've all been told storytelling is great. No, we all got told that as leaders, and when I was in corporate, you've
Mm,
got to use stories. You've got to use stories. I
correct.
think people find it hard to figure out what story they should tell, what story they should incorporate, and so there's spectrums. There's some people that just include stories, but they actually aren't relevant to the point that they're making, which is not ideal. Don't want to do that.
Mm,
And there's others that tell a story that's relevant, but they don't have enough richness and depth in the
mm,
story. So it doesn't actually cause any emotional reaction in the listener.
mm,
It's probably better than still a whole lot of data or copious amounts of information on a PowerPoint slide.
mm,
But it hasn't gone deep enough
mm,
to resonate with the person that's listening.
mm. And when, when one is making a presentation, there could be a lot of complex business or technical ideas in the presentation as well. How do you
Mm.
ensure that doesn't get lost when you're establishing the emotional connection with the audience?
So important.
Mm,
Like that is the number one thing that I do with clients first when I'm working with them is really establish what is the core message, because if you're not going to get that across, then nothing else matters.
yeah.
So it's really important.
Mm,
And I think this is where that combination of the corporate background and the performance background really
mm,
comes together.
mm,
Uh, so how do we make sure it doesn't get lost? It's at the center of everything we do. So it's in terms of the illuminated story framework, we figure that out first, and then we keep checking against that. Um, so, people try and get creative and create fun and entertainment,
mm.
but if you haven't got that core message and foundation figured out first,
Yeah.
then you can be heading in the wrong direction. But if you've got that to keep coming back to as your core, then you should be okay. So if I think of an example, I was working with a lawyer recently,
Mhm.
and she had to explain a change to the law, which was very boring.
Yeah.
It was a very boring change to the law, and she read it to me, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, what are we going to do with this?"
Mm,
Um, and so it took us a while. Like I have to ask copious amounts of questions because I'm not a lawyer
mhm,
sometimes to
mhm,
figure out what is the core message here, what is the consequence
mm,
of whoever this law affects not following this law. And
mm.
that's what we figured out. So I figured out through our deep conversation that it was going to affect small business owners, and it was going to affect them in three different ways. So we actually ended up creating three different characters, three different types of business owners. We described their stories of the business they owned and why they loved their business and all
Mm,
the things.
mm,
And then we brought in the law part, and what if they did certain actions. I'm trying to explain it without explaining the law.
mhm,
If
mhm,
they did certain actions and didn't fill in this particular form that
mm,
the law had changed around,
mhm,
how it was going to affect them, and it was going to cost them millions of dollars if they
mm,
didn't get it right.
mm.
So she was blown away because she's like, oh, finally, like her audience was going to resonate with that, and they were going to
Yeah.
remember that
Mm,
and be able to action that into
mm.
their business.
Wow. Wow. And then, presenting anything legal can be very, very dry and boring. Thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing this example. My next question, Carmen, is how do you coach someone to own the stage, even if they are naturally introverted?
Yes. Look, I think building trust with the person first, to be honest, is really important. So I like to believe, and my clients normally do tell me that I create a very safe space for them
Hmm.
so that they can get out of themselves. Because if you think back to when you were a child, whether you were introverted or extroverted, it didn't matter. You would play,
Mm.
and it didn't matter what you looked like when you played.
Yeah.
And I think we forget that as adults. We worry about how we're coming across and what we look like. And sometimes we need to get out of ourselves and just be in the moment to create the impact that we want on the stage.
Mm.
So there's lots of things that I do with people. I won't get into the nitty gritty, but I
Yeah.
basically direct them like a theatre director would direct an actor.
Mhm, mhm,
And if I need to initially tell them exactly where to stand when
mm,
they're saying what, I will do that.
mm,
But we'll get to the point through the rehearsal process where that feels authentic for them and
mm,
feels natural for them. So therefore, that's the way they look to
mm.
the audience.
Well said. But no matter how good a speaker one may be, there is always the question of managing nerves and the inevitable stage fright.
Yes,
What is your
absolutely.
advice to people who are going up onto a big stage with a large audience?
Well, first of all, I just think it's good to acknowledge that it's natural
Yeah.
to feel nervous, and that even though I love being up on stage and I love acting, I still feel nervous when I'm about to present in front of a large audience.
Mm,
So it's okay. It's okay to feel natural. It's okay to feel nervous. It's a
mhm,
natural reaction from your body.
mm,
And then the question is, what do I do with it? What do I do with the nerves? So a certain amount of nerves can be a really good thing because I
mm.
think it gives you more energy when you're out there.
Right.
And the bigger the stage, the larger the audience, the more
Mm,
energy you need to
mm,
come across normal.
mm,
If you only use the same amount of energy that you would in a small meeting room on a large stage, you're going to look a bit flat and
mm,
boring.
mm.
But then there's people that get the nerves that are debilitating, that are causing their voice to shake or their hands to shake. And clearly, then it looks like you're nervous to the audience. So that's obviously not how you want to come across.
Mm,
So there's two key things you need to do. You either need to use the energy or you need to calm your body down
mm.
because your body's obviously automatically in that flight or fight mode.
Yeah.
So to use the energy, if you have the opportunity and you can, for instance, go to the toilet or something 5 minutes before,
Mm,
30 deep squats, star jumps, anything like that to start using some of that nervous energy, the adrenaline that's pumping around your
mm,
body
mm.
is going to help. If you're not in that position, so if we're talking about someone that's just in a meeting room and has to
Mm.
stand up and present,
Yeah.
if you're sitting at tables and people can't see what you're doing with your hands underneath, you could be gripping your fists like I'm trying to think of someone that's not watching us
Mhm.
right now
Mm.
and how I'm explaining this.
Yeah.
Um, to use some of that energy.
Mm.
But I'd probably recommend the opposite in those situations, or even just before you're going on, calming your body down. So, a really easy breathing exercise
Yeah.
for that
Mm.
is to breathe in through the nose for 2 counts and then out through the mouth for 6 to 8 counts. The longer the better, but don't pass out. So, you
Yeah.
need to train your body. You might start lower and go longer as you keep
Mm.
going. And don't wait till 3 minutes before you're about to go on stage. This is something you can be doing
Mm.
weeks and days out because it's muscle memory. So if you're doing these exercises and you feel really calm when you're doing them, when you do it 5 minutes before, your body goes, "Oh,
Mm.
I feel really calm when I do this. Okay, I can relax." And you've trained it to get into that
Mm.
mode before you go on stage.
How amazing. And what great advice. Thank you.
My
My next
pleasure.
question, Carmen, is what are some of the trends you are seeing in the use of technology or augmented reality or holograms when it comes to keynote performances?
Um, to be honest, I haven't seen a lot yet. I
Mhm.
think everybody, including myself, is certainly exploring this area. And I've actually written myself a keynote show where I would love to use holograms and
Mm.
have characters talking to me on stage.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just not there yet,
Mm.
unless you have really, 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 really big budgets. What does work? So if you pre-record a real it's not there yet. When I say it's not there yet, it's not there yet if you want to recreate people.
Mhm.
So so augmented reality can create really amazing scenes. You could put yourself in different worlds and it
Mm.
can really look like you're there. But when you try and create a person, it's just not quite right
Mm,
yet.
mm.
That's what I'm
Well
seeing at
said.
the
Well
moment.
said. I have time for two more questions for you. Um, Without giving me any names, can you share any one of your favorite client transformations, maybe a before and after story?
Yes, yes, I can. I'm actually going to share one from a long time ago now, or this
Mm,
couple.
mm,
Um, One in particular, I was working with a chief information officer of an organization,
mm,
and he was confident in the office and the general presentations he had to do, no problem with that. But he was invited to speak on stage in Seattle in the USA at
mm,
an Amazon conference.
mhm,
And it was going to be on stage in front of about 1,000 people, I think it was, for
mm,
his presentation. And he knew he needed to do it differently and do it
yeah.
better. So we only had, it was a short rehearsal process because we had to create the talk and rehearse. So we only had
Mhm,
8 weeks. But he worked so hard. He worked so hard in those
mm,
8 weeks, and we transformed him on stage. He
mm,
performed on that stage with incredible storytelling and amazing graphics that we integrated behind him.
mhm.
And to the point where people that worked with him in the office that had gone, that were in the US, just were like, wow,
Amazing.
who is this person up on stage?
Mm,
He wrote to me not long after he got off stage because I think he was on this enormous high,
mm,
telling me that he had hundreds of people come up to him afterwards, not only saying how great his talk was, but specifically telling him what they're going to implement into their organization that
wow.
he'd implemented into theirs,
Mm,
and how incredible it was because it was a non-for-profit he was working for that supported men's cancer. So it was a pretty amazing cause as
yeah.
well. But it was how the technology had really helped them grow that organization to impact more people.
Mm,
And there was actually a man doing a podcast in the foyer at the
mm,
time. And so he grabbed him as well. And he's like, I need to interview you. So he got a 15-minute podcast interview just
amazing.
off the back of the keynote, as well as hundreds of connections all around the world that we're going to obviously implement what he talked about, but also we're a new part of his community in terms of his own personal brand.
Amazing.
So I was really excited for
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. What a great story. Thank you. And my last question for you, Carmen. If you could teach one principle from the Illuminated Story Method to every emerging leader today, what would it be?
Oh, it's such a good question. I'm actually going to go really simple with
Hmm.
this one so that it can resonate with more of your
Mm.
listeners.
Yeah.
Because obviously I did do a lot of work in businesses and corporates.
Yeah.
It's to drop the PowerPoint slides.
I agree.
I know it's been said 1,000 times before, but it still is so more prevalent than ever before, I think. Um, as soon as I get clients to do that, it frees them. They think it's going to take away their crutch because they're using it as a prompt to make sure they get through all the information. But when we take it away, and I'm not saying you can't use it at all, there are
Mm,
ways to use it that works well. But when you take it away and you really focus on what message do I want to get across to the room, to the audience, to the client, the board, whoever it is you're
mm,
talking to,
mm,
and how can I do that in a way that is going to be so memorable I'm going to stand out,
mm,
through all the presentations I have to sit through,
yeah.
whether that is a conference or whether it's, the board or a meeting or whatever it is.
Mm,
The line that I've used with clients for years and years now is think of yourself as the lead in your message
mm,
and any tool you use, I call PowerPoint a tool,
mm,
as the supporting cast.
mm.
It should only be there if it's going to help impact your message and help people remember your message more.
Very interesting. And on that note, and your very, very powerful advice of dropping the PowerPoint presentation, which I completely agree with. Thank you, Carmen, for speaking to me about your own amazing journey. I thought you gave me some incredibly detailed thoughts on the Illuminated Story Method. Of course, tells me what a great storyteller you are because you just gave me such amazing examples and such amazing stories. My viewers and listeners are going to remember these for a long time. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Ash. Been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.